And hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pumpkin Copter Cast, the only video game podcast. So today I am joined by the three people behind Boston Fig Fest darling Swimsanity.
What's going on, folks?
Yo.
So yeah, we'll start with the basic who each of you are and what each of you do on the game.
Sure. So I'm Khalil. I'm one of the co-founders and developers of Decoy Games.
My name's Ahmed. I'm also co-founder and developer of Eco Games.
This is Chris Ben. I just do all the art.
Just do. You do all the art in total.
So yeah, to start things off, how did each of you get introduced to like video games, like in general?
I mean, if you're just talking like outside of development, just from like a base video game perspective, I mean, I've been playing games since I was 3 or 4 years old. My first console was the original Nintendo, and my first game was actually the first Mario. So my mom actually started me and my brother on it when we were young as a way to just keep us busy. And like year after year, it just kind of became more and more of like a passion. Going from hobby to a passion to like in recession, and now we're trying to turn it into a career. So just as far as getting into gaming, like I don't remember a time before gaming for me. So
Yeah, I would say my whole experience started really young, actually hanging out with my older sister. I think her way of like keeping me quiet was she had actually picked up a Super Nintendo when I was like super, super young. Like, and actually, now that you're kind of jogging my memory, it was like I was even playing the regular Nintendo as a little kid at like cousin's house and stuff. So yeah, I guess similar to you, Will, I can't really remember a time when I wasn't playing a game.
yep.
Okay, so what were your favorite game? What was your favorite game and/or games growing up?
So man, so I'd say when I was younger, I would start with I know Ahmed's probably going to say the same thing. We grew up a big time on Bomberman. As I said before, my mom got me into gaming, so we used to play Bomberman with her when we were really young. Nintendo eras, just like everyone else, Mario. Then when as stuff started to mature, I'd say like the height of my gaming passion, where I feel like was like the golden age for me, was like N64. So like Perfect Dark, GoldenEye, Mario Party, all those party games. That was like kind of the height of being able to do like couch gaming. I'd actually also throw some of the like WWE games in there, just having a lot of good times with your friends. Um, and then after that, I'd have some other favorites. I'd throw like Left 4 Dead in there. I'm a big RPG player, so all of the Tales games. And then my favorite game all time would be I'm a big time basketball fan, so I literally have every single NBA 2K since 2K1. So,
Really?
and if I if I had a larger allowance, I would have had the regular 2K too. But life happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, about the same thing for me as well. It was definitely just the Nintendo era was big for us growing up. And after the era, I was really big into competitive shooters. So I played a lot of Rainbow Six, Halo, beginning times of Call of Duty. Then kind of moved away from that. But yeah, a lot of multiplayer games, a lot of online competitive games are definitely games we were liked as well. And some Japanese RPGs are always nice to throw in there.
Yeah, for me, I'd have to go like system by system. Back when I was really young, I'd say my favorite two games were the Turtles in Time game and probably like Super Baseball 2020. Those were two things that like I just played so many hours. And then kind of like middle school years and stuff, I was real big into Dark Cloud, Kingdom Hearts, and then kind of the last, I would say, 10 years or so, I pretty much don't play much beyond sports games because I get so little time to play outside of developing Swimsanity with these guys. But yeah, I don't know, a bit of variation for sure in what my favorites have been over time.
Yeah, we did have a pretty irresponsible stretch where all three of us were playing Overwatch for a lot longer than we probably should have. Yeah, that kind of that kept us away from development a little longer than it should have, but we got ourselves back on track.
Alright, so Cleo and Ahmed, you two are all three of you. I don't know where my brain is today. So what made the three of you guys decide to get into game design?
So like I said before, it's always been a passion as far as gaming. I never really thought game design was a real possibility. But when I went to after high school, when I went to college, and I'll probably speak for all three of us. I don't think any of us, if you went 10 years back, I don't think any of us thought game development was a possibility. But it just kind of came through a series of steps. But when I went to college, I majored in computer science because I just figured that might lead me to game development, but I never was really sure. And in my senior year, after not having a single class even close to relative to game development, I did take a class in Flash development. And one of the assignments for that class was to make a Flash game assignment.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like crazy excited because at that point I had never had any chance to make any games. So I was like, okay, this is like my one chance to finally like kind of see what game development is like. So I went like all out, way above and beyond, and I made my first game. Which was at that time Swimsanity, The Adventures of Mooba Jiver, the Scuba Diver. And the inspiration from this game was there was a game on the Game Boy called Game & Watch Gallery, which is like a collection of arcade games on Nintendo. But one of the original games was a game where Mario used to go down to the bottom of the ocean and try to grab loads of gold and bring it back up to his ship. But while he's trying to grab that gold, there was an octopus kind of trying to get in the way and, attack him while he gets that gold. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take that concept. I'll keep the scuba diver idea, but instead of having just one big octopus, I'm going to have like a swordfish, and I'm going to have, like a crab and a jellyfish and stuff, and, all different kinds of sea creatures, and kind of make it like a hyper casual game. So yeah, I went all out on that one. A lot of kids in and outside our class really kind of enjoyed it. Like they'd play it in between class and stuff like that, which kind of gave me some confidence and stuff there. And then there was a final that for that same class where one of the options was to make another game. So I made Swimsanity 2 Deep Sea Jivers, and that's when I made it 2-player. So two of these MOBAs going head to head against each other while all the sea creatures and stuff were still there and kind of all the insanity there that's inside the game. At that point, my brother Ahmed also played, and I'll kind of pass the torch over to him to how he got into it.
Yeah, I was definitely just trying to take that concept to bring it to console was a lot of my focus there. But growing up too, we did a lot of paper prototyping with video games when we were young, just mostly because we couldn't really play games during the week during school time. So we pretty much tried to make the games that we enjoyed into paper games. So that was kind of our first step into really getting development. But as far as actually getting into game development code, yeah, I was really taking everything my brother started, trying to move it to consoles, trying to find us a path where we can actually create console games. So we really just focused on the first framework we went to was the XNA framework, which was this free framework where you can develop for Xbox 360 games. So really dabbling into that was allow us to really understand gaming, really understand game structure, game design. That really allowed us to also just focus on game design outside of Unity as well. It's something that we were able to bring into Unity, where typically if you might start into a game engine, you kind of conform to that game engine itself. We really took kind of from the framework, since it was just pretty lightweight, the game design and how we took our learning from that, how Cole took learning from the Flash, and then went into the actual bring it to console. The issue was at that point that we knew in order to have our game be at full potential, we wanted to make sure our art was great well too. So at that point, that's when we were able to kind of go back and grab Chris and help us out, and Chris can kind of let you know how that story went too.
Yeah, I was gonna say you kind of started the interview off. You were about to ask the right question. I think you checked yourself just because you didn't want to offend me. But I mean, my entire reason for being in game development at this point is really just the credit to my team. Is on Med and Khalil. way back now at this point, kind of took me out one morning for breakfast. We had all grown up as very close friends living in the same hometown. And they had kind of just brought me along a path of like, hey, we know you're a talented artist, and we think that we have a good opportunity here of something that we could really make happen as a team if we had a talented artist to kind of couple with the skills and things that they were already bringing to the table. So yeah, we kind of went out, shared a meal and a conversation. Right after we had all graduated college together over at UMass Amherst, and kind of the rest is history from there. The last almost 7 to 8 years of my life have really just been kind of focused around developing some community with these guys and making the right life choices, moving closer together and such, so that we can make that happen. So yeah, it's been incredibly exciting. I'm very happy that I got to take a skill set that up until working on this project I kind of used as more of just almost like an outlet. It was something that just to be creative, and I always enjoyed making new things, I guess. That's where I could put it. And now to do it in such a way that's contributing to this awesome game that we're looking forward to sharing with people, I think has been a great experience. That's kind of my lead up into how I got involved in the project.
Yeah, and from there it was all self-taught. So regardless we're talking to me, Ahmed, or Chris, everything that we did from that point on, it was like YouTube videos and looking at other people's how other people did it, and kind of learning from stuff online. So none of us ever had any real like formal training. So it was a lot of just kind of learning, not just how to do like art or how to do development, but how to make a game. It's not just art and development. It's almost like putting together a movie, making things so that people can easily understand what's going on and how to make a game fun. It's a lot of these things that we kind of learned over the years. And we think Swimsanity is kind of the end product of a lot of that learning and stuff.
Yeah, it's a great point, Will. I do think that a lot of people that we interact with don't fully understand the scope of how much pride we take in being the indie company that we are. We really are a group of three people that are kind of so self-sufficient within the construct of our team that we take a lot of pride in Swimsanity, and we're really looking forward to sharing it out with people. So.
Okay. So now we can. Well, that happened. Yeah, we can get into the meat and taters of this. So just if we were back at Boston Fig Fest or like any sort of gaming convention where you guys would be, like, and someone was walking by and asked you, "What is Swimsanity?" Like, what's the rundown you would give them?
Get him, Ahmed.
Yeah, so rundown again, it's an underwater shooter or competitive cooperative game modes. Ability to actually play online or locally. So if we step into our co-op modes, you'll be able to jump into adventure where we have a story-driven campaign where you can go ahead and see and discover who Muba is, discover that he's a hero and protector, and see how go on his journey and help and be able to go up with 3 other players to go through that journey. Or you can jump into survival mode, which is basically like your typical horde mode with a few kind of unique things that happen within the game. Or you can jump into our competitive modes, which you can do deathmatch, free for all our teams, and also game modes such as Orb Rush, which kind of gives you the capture a flag. Throughout all game modes, you have the ability to unleash some sanity. So you select an ability, which you can either like freeze all your enemies, rain down harpoons to the sky, turn to a shark. So when you deal enough damage on your opponents, you'll be able to unleash some sanity, and that's kind of the main concept and ability of the game that goes across all game modes. In our final product, you'll be able to unlock more moves, complete up to 150 challenges, and as I said before, kind of go online, compete on leaderboards, and see if you become the best player in the world.
Okay. So you mentioned a bit earlier that the Swimsanity's original version way back when was based kind of sort of on the Mario Game & Watch game where he goes a diving and tries to be wary of an octopus, but is there any other reason you decided to have like Swimsanity's primary aesthetic be like underwater and scuba based?
Yeah, that was honestly the main that was the main inspiration. I know a lot of people are like the underwater aspects of games are usually the worst one, but being that that one was completely underwater, and I used to play that game for like hours and hours and hours on end, and also just the fact that it kind of took it as a challenge, right? Like, you know, there really aren't any other underwater games. Never mind like underwater multiplayer games. You know, full on. I shouldn't say there aren't any other underwater games, but an underwater party game like the one that we're doing right now. Um, that was really the main inspiration of where I started, given that I wasn't, when I was originally making the first Swimsanity, I wasn't doing with the mindset that I was going to make a multi-platform indie game. But as we kind of kept building it out and saw how many different game modes that we can put on top of it, and a lot of like the versatility that we had and, you know, replayability, um, we kind of went from the start of the Game Watch gallery inspiration and just kept pushing.
Okay. So Ahmed, sorry, I can't talk today.
That was better
You,
than
me-
that. Was
you
good.
mentioned. Sorry. So you gave a brief summary of the various modes that can be expected when Swimsanity is ready for the world. Could you go into just a bit more details to what they are and how they'll play?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, in the co-op mode, when you go into adventure, we basically have 5 worlds that span across each mode. So in adventure mode, you and 3 other players can go in and kind of go through a different experience in each level. So in one level, like our first one, you'll be running away from a big whale. So it's basically like a chase type of gameplay. And in our next level, in Toxic Lagoon, you'll be fighting a big turtle, but it's more of like a platformer. So you'll be fighting like a boss battle, like you might see in like a Cuphead. Yet you'll have more of like platforming aspects, like you might see in like a Mega Man. Um, if you like doing stuff like a horde mode, like in survival, jumping into that really gives you ability to kind of unlock different challenges and also try to survive as long as you can with other players. So it's about waves of enemies, and you'll be able to discover new enemies that come on, and difficulty kind of spikes up. It's something you can quickly jump into and have a lot of fun with. If you jump over to our versus modes, this is really where we showcase this a lot at our conventions, but really it's be able to be very competitive, but jump in and see if you can kind of take out your opponents in something like a death match or team death match, which each one kind of gives different types of strategies as you're trying to do free for all or with teams. One mode that we haven't really showed too much on is orb rush, which is a lot like a capture the flag. So there'll be an orb in the middle of the screen. You go and collect that orb, and you have to bring it back into your pod. However, just getting the orb is difficult as players can kind of shoot it out of your body. And this can be played in teams as well, which adds a whole new dynamic as each team has their own pod and own orb, and they have to kind of go and grab it and place it in there. The great thing too is if you don't have online or if you're connected offline, maybe don't have enough players to play with, you can always play with bots. Not only allows you to kind of either get better at the game or just kind of fill in that slot there too. Is always something to experience. But yeah, we feel like each game mode we try to make it so it's its own experience. There's some people like the co-op, some people like versus. If you like it all, that's great. But it just allows you to kind of immerse yourself into one or many game modes, and it kind of makes sure there's always something there for everybody.
Yeah, we're pretty confident that we always say this and joke around, but you can take any one of our individual game modes, and that game can be enjoyed as a game on its own. So in a way, each game mode gives you enough replayability where you can almost enjoy it as its own isolated game. So we take that and multiply that with an 8 times experience. Never mind the online play and the challenges that are going to be in the game and the fact that you can play with or against your friends. So we're really trying to go above and beyond the aspect of replayability in an indie game that's been seen very a lot, not too much before. So
Okay, so why did you guys decide to give such a, like, the primary focus on co-op slash versus slash general just multiplayer gameplay?
I think it really stems just from the fact that we grew up as '90s gamers, and most of the enjoyable experiences that I can remember from that era of gaming was all just like about having a holistic experience, playing something that would offer, both like a competitive type of feel to it, but also made it feel like you could sit there with a couple of players on any given console and like really enjoy the same game for more than just a couple of minutes. Well, what do you guys think?
yeah, I would say so. I would even ask you, Tyler. I'd probably say some of the best games you've played have been multiplayer games. I mean, there's great single player games out there, but some of the best games that you've played have been ones where you can enjoy them with your friends. So any experience that we can do without cheapening the experience to allow you to enjoy it with your friends, whether you're playing with or against them, that was really the source of the fun of the game, right? Making sure that you can play with or against other players.
And for me, multiplayer games, for me, there's a special place in my heart specifically for Mario Party
There you go.
6, as that was the game
There you go.
like my family and I, like my cousins and I, would always play whenever we were together when we were kids. And
Yeah. And I think that's the reason that Nintendo's always on, like, Nintendo always hangs around because they always have that kind of like family and play with your family and friends brand, and that never dies, that never goes anywhere. That's not to say that we would never make a single player game, but that's a lot of the inspiration around focusing some sanity on multiplayer. We were, like I said, we really grew up in the era where the biggest games are the ones that you played competitively with your friends, that you can just get on the couch and play either co-op or against each other. But obviously, adding a new age to that, making sure that you can take that experience online, whether it's casual or competitive play. That's what we're making sure we get all that into this game.
okay, so when Swimsanity is all ready to be released into the world, what platforms do you intend to put it on?
We're going for Xbox One, PlayStation, Steam. We're working hard on. We're hopeful. Sorry, we're hopeful for a Switch version. We're pretty sure about that, but that's not official yet. Yeah, it'll be on all platforms, online play. So we're also hopefully working behind the scenes to maybe get some crossplay. No promises on that yet, but yeah, it will be multi-platform online play.
Okay.
If anybody wants smoke on PS4, I got you.
Oh yeah, and we're going to be playing against people, so follow us on our social media because our gamer tags will be out there. We don't make games that we don't want to play, so any game that we do make, whether it's some Sandy or games in the future, we're making games that we want to play and we want to play competitively. So we will be active gamers on this.
Okay. And if anyone is interested in, if any of the negative 8 people listening to this are interested in, keeping up to date on all future competitive outings, you can follow them at Decoy Games on the Twitters.
Yes, sir. And I'll also say we're also been doing a lot of going around different places. So if anyone happens to be from the New York area and listening, on October 27th, hosted by Playcrafting, they're going to have a Halloween event completely free in Times Square. We'll be there doing our usual tournaments and giveaways. We think anyone, if you are in the area, trust me, you're going to want to be there.
Okay, so I know right now the 3 of you are focusing on, whatever it is game devs focus on when they're getting close to releasing their game? I don't know.
Survival. That's what we
Yeah.
focus on.
But like in the future, like what other genres would you guys be interested in tackling?
So I can't give before anyone jumps on the mic. I don't want to give away specific genres, but I will say this: we do have 3 to 4 really solid game concepts that we have planned. We're not leaking any of those at this point, but I can guarantee you, first of all, that the next game will not be Swimsanity 2. Second of all, that it will be bigger and larger than Swimsanity. So, but we do have some really good ideas. We feel like we also feel like Swimsanity is also a franchisable game, if that's a word. So while we confirm we'll not be working on that next, we do feel like there's possibility in the future we'll come back to it. Never mind these other upcoming concepts and kind of real cool things that we're excited to work on.
Yeah, we'll definitely be diving into, different genres, and I think one thing that's consistent across what we do too is we really try to do something retro and innovate on that as well. So things that, genres that we grew up on, but also adding a new innovative layer to that. So that's something that probably be really consistent with how we work at Decoy Games.
Yeah, they stole all my thunder, man. I was going
Now it's time for the question that anyone who's ever been on this insane train ride of a podcast always understands perfectly, and there's never any confusion ever. In your three own opinions, is video games?
What do you mean? Like, what do you mean is video games?
Is
video games what?
It's just, yeah, that's it. Like,
is video game. I'm going with if it's a question, I'm going with yeah.
Sounds about right to me.
I gotta go with yeah. Video games has pretty much been there since I've been doing what I've been doing. So yeah.
I think it's a trick question. One that's probably a lot deeper than people understand. My comeback to that would be like, can video games answer a question with a question? So
that'll probably be this generation's great debate.
What's your answer?
I think video games can. I've certainly seen it happen.
That's fair.
I think always video games. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah. So, and with that in no way, shape, or form confusing series of exchanges, that brings us to the conclusion of this episode of the Pumpkin Copter Cast, a good old podcast about video games. I would like to thank the 3 people behind Decoy Games for joining me and entertaining, a crazy person's pretensions to video game podcastery.
Yes, sir. And we would like to thank you for having us. To anybody listening, remember, follow us on Decoy Games, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also follow us because we will be traveling a lot. So when we're in your area, we guarantee you we'll be putting on one of the better shows that you'll see from an indie game company at indie game conventions. Never mind the fact that with a humble brag, Swimsanity, we guarantee you it's a really good time for any age, any competitive level. Not just from me, but from the people who play. So I really want anybody who's listening to come check it out and follow us and whatnot. So.
Okay, so yeah, and if any of the negative 15 people listening to this have enjoyed it for whatever reason, you can like and subscribe, and on the rare times I post anything worth reading, you can follow me on the Twitters at tgorman83, and yeah, like they said, there'll be a link to the Decoy Games website in the description, and yeah, like they said, follow them on all their social medias at decoy games so you can keep up to date with all of the things. And yeah, this has been the Pumpkin Copter cast. I hope to see you again next time.
Thanks, Travis.
All right, y'all. Later.